I wanted to be a singer, actor, dancer, triple threat, whatever. Like I wanted to do stuff that got me in front of people. And then when I started drunk tweeting at reality stars and producers at night, when I started getting responses, something in me clicked. Like, here I am, literally a mom on welfare, food stamps. I've gone through a tough breakup. I'm an alcoholic. We're literally living at that point in a city called Anoka, Minnesota, which most people have not heard of. We're living next door to like a house that continually gets raided with like semi-automatic weapons with the police and SWAT teams. And down the street is the prison where they like straight up release people. So when they release prisoners, they open the doors and the prisoner goes out. And then my house is right down the street.
Wow.
Super awesome. But meanwhile, I'm tweeting people who are in a totally different possibility. And something in me kind of clicked. Like social media has suddenly made this portal. I know that sounds super woo-woo, but I don't even mean it to sound woo-woo. It creates
It's a great word for it, yeah.
Oh, it's like a bridge into a new possibility. And that was what sparked my interest in social media in a really big way. But then when I started realizing, oh my gosh, I can create content and reach people that otherwise wouldn't ever realize I exist, that's when I became super passionate about it. It's hardest to market ourselves. And I want to put that out there because so many times people are like, what is wrong with me? I swear, I know my business. I know my products. I know my services. I know my message. And the second it comes to marketing themselves, it is so challenging.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of American Snippets. I'm your co-host, Barb Allen, and I have this whole big intro I had all planned out today, but I'm not even going to get into that because I don't want to. I just want to get right into sitting down with today's guest, Rachel Pedersen, because if you have not heard of her, you are going to definitely want to check out all of her sites and her info and her content and her services by the end of this. But if you have heard of her, you already know her story, which we're going to get into along the way. So let's just jump into it. When you have someone like Rachel that you get on the line, Rachel, I know it's probably weird for you. You're like, dude, I'm just a mom. I'm here. I got to do all this. And you got someone like all flustered and excited to talk to you, but you've earned that. Like, it's because it's genuine, and that doesn't just happen. You don't just get up one day and say, I'm going to be this person, and you're that person. You've worked hard to build that up where you are a trusted source for so many people now who look to you both personally and professionally. And I'm imagining that can feel like a lot of pressure some days, but it's also a gift and an opportunity. Rachel, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited we get to sit down and have a little combo. It's almost like we're face-to-face having coffee and other people get to listen. That's pretty cool.
I know. I love that. We like to keep things informal here because I tried to pretend to be formal once and it just didn't work. Like, it's not how I roll. I don't know. It just wasn't fun.
That's relatable.
So look, I mentioned to you that I found you online a while back, and I can't even remember the path that led me to stumble across you, but I feel like you were in this area and you relate to and work with so many people that I know as well. It's only a matter of time before I found you, and I'm glad I did. It's easy for people to look at you today, Rachel, and think, oh my gosh, you have built up this massive success. You have this life that you are in love with, which is something not everybody can say. And you're continually growing and building, and you're already at heights where a lot of people feel like they only dream of being, and you just keep setting new heights for yourself to reach and push. But so I think it's probably easy for a lot of people to look at you and think, I'd be Rachel too, if only this or if only that, hadn't happened, without fully knowing your story. So
yeah,
let's get into it. Let's start first with where you are now and
yes.
what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Well, Can I share one thing that's really interesting? Because this came out like this week. This conversation kept coming up with my team and with my husband. So this week is a really interesting week because I'm really proud of this. So it's like sitting
I was going to bring that up for sure. Yeah, that's
like
huge.
Everywhere.
That's huge.
It's got to be. I was actually like, can I put this on a necklace and like carry it around like Flava Flav carries his clock? You know, I want to make sure. No, I'm just kidding. But the wild part is there's some interesting things that happen like as you build, because it doesn't feel like you're winning all the time when you're doing these things. So this plaque, this award, the play button, we got this for 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is really surreal for me because I'm just recording videos on my webcam and on my phone when I'm traveling, just recording those, putting them out. There's no fancy production. Yes, we have an editor, but like, it's never felt like this glamorous process, Barb. It's just felt like one video and then another video and then another. And before you know it, it's like, oh, wow. All of these little steps, these little videos where none of them felt particularly glamorous, it created 100,000 subscribers. And so it's weird because there are two sides to this. There's the one side where you want to celebrate, but when you're like going through it, you're like, none of this feels very glamorous. None of this feels very sexy. None of this is very fun. It doesn't feel like there's a tipping point or anything like that. And then on the flip side, you have to step back and be like, oh my gosh, this is something that 6 years ago would have been like a lifetime goal for me. And today it's happening. And now I'm realizing, oh shoot, now we have to come up with new lifetime goals. So there are layers to this, which is, it's crazy sometimes.
It is. And a gigantic congratulations on that. That's no small feat. Especially I know YouTube is a tough place to be. It's an ocean, right? And we're all just fish, but you managed to do it. So congratulations. I'm curious to know now if you remember your very first Instagram post.
Oh my goodness. So my Instagram is like older than my business. Did you go back and scroll and find it?
I have it. I'm going to hold it up for you. I don't know if you can see it right there. That's your very first Instagram post. And you literally say my first Instagram picture. So I did scroll back through 3,700 Instagram posts or something that you have, because I knew it would tell a story and speak for itself. And it does. And it's cool. So I want to get into that for a minute and talk about like where you were. If you remember, do you remember that picture?
I do. Oh yeah. I know exactly where that is.
So
what's the date on that picture? Because I'm just trying to piece it together.
That date is July 17th, 2012. You had 16 likes and 1 comment on it.
Isn't that so cool? Like, that's really cool. So that post is over 9, almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
Dakota was under a year old still, and she's on my hip there. What's interesting is the house I'm in front of is my grandparents' cabin, and they bought that cabin for super cheap. They were 2 teachers who just were very, very, very wise and intentional with all their investing. And so they bought this cabin. I want to say it was like $30,000 or $40,000 for the land and the supplies. And they built this really it's a very humble cabin, which is now the land is almost worth $1 million, which kind of blows my mind. But it's just always been our family cabin. At that point in time, I was going through a breakup with Dakota's dad. So we had been engaged, and I'm pretty sure right around that point was right when we started breaking up. And it was a weird season because I was like, shoot, like I'm officially going to be a single mom. And Dakota's dad and I don't open up much about it, but we were on and off and on and off and on and off and on and off. And at that point I was like, shoot, now I'm going to be single. I should probably get on Instagram because I'm going to have to find someone. Instagram's the best place for that. So that was the thought process there, which is wild.
It is wild, right? And it shows like, wow, like when you did this very first post, I'm guessing you really had no idea how you would one day use social, so you literally hopped on Instagram like, hey, I'm single. I may as well hop on Instagram, which I get it. I got my fiance online. I get everything online. Like I hate shopping in person, right? I hopped on to Match and I was like, boop, boop, and here we are. But Social media can be used for like, I have this like hair going boom. It can be
I
used
like
like somebody has to, Rachel. It can be used for so many things. It is such a powerful tool. It literally has the ability to be a tool that changes the trajectory of our lives. And it's just what we use that tool for, how we use it, that's going to determine which trajectory it is. It's so interesting to me. So
yes.
when you did that first post, little did you know that one day you would be like the queen of social media, right? Like here you
No,
are.
I had no idea. I will
Yeah.
say there's a parallel journey that thankfully nobody can find because I deactivated it as soon as I went into the business space. It's a very different Rachel. I'm going to be super, super honest about that. And we don't even need to dive into what that necessarily means. But there was drunk Rachel on Twitter every night
She's
tweeting
here a
at
little
Ria.
bit. She's here a little bit.
Just a little. You see her.
Yes,
There's like
you get a
lots of
taste.
beer.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell that I'm a little unstable with a lot of decisions. But on Twitter, I was like literally tweeting at reality stars every night. And I ended up building relationships with some of the producers from The Bachelor and ended up having year-long, like multi-year-long friendships and relationships. So I kind of saw this sneak peek into a portal. But once again, I was really drunk every night and just like tweeting, and that's not a highlight. So I went ahead and deleted that account so no one can find it.
Yeah, but so there's a difference between deleting it because you don't want that. It's so easy for something like that to be taken, manipulated, and used like, oh, this is Rachel, versus pretending it never happened and not using that as another bouncing board to bounce things off of and teach yourself and teach other people. And I think, Rachel, that's one thing that might be so important or so key to how you've built what you've built, because we were talking like right before we started recording. I still don't know the word that I was trying to look for, but definitely not aspirating on your success. Aspirational. I don't know what it is.
Really funny.
I'm a writer too, right? Like I wrote books and I write articles, but I don't know what word I'm looking for there. But yeah, like you've kept everything so relatable and you're so real, from sharing, the mom bod to the struggles of work, to backdoors into your depression and the adversity you overcame in your life. But what's cool about it, I think, is that that's not how you define yourself. It's such a hard thing for people to figure out. If you have a bad story, I did this when I was first trying to figure out who I was. Oh, I have this horrible story. My husband's murdered. I'm on my own. I'm doing this and that. That must be what I talk about. But nobody cares. Like nobody wants to like really hear that, right? Like, what is the balance for you between keeping it real and showing the actual downs and like the unglamorous side versus showing the happiness and the success?
So one of the things that really helps me when I want to like, the best way to put it is like word vomit all the things I'm thinking and feeling, is I start with two places, because this actually really does help. I am by nature an oversharer. And so you almost have to be like, oh, okay, hold on one second here. So I lean heavily on my journal. So if I'm feeling like I just need to get thoughts out, or I need to process something, or I'm upset about something, or this doesn't make sense to me, I'll first word vomit it all over my journal on purpose. That's where I start, because that's the place where I can share my initial thoughts before it's gone through a filter. Now, a few years ago, I used to just share everything. And soon I started realizing there's a lot of people seeing every single thing I put up here. Oh, shoot. Like this stuff could all be taken out of context. I should probably start like putting it through a few filters before I share stuff, just to make sure this is what I really want to put out there. There's people who are actually looking at my posts and like referencing them in life decisions. So we just got to be a little more responsible with that. So I start with my journal, and then every Friday I meet with my therapist. And one of the things I explained to her on my healing journey is, you know what I need more than anything? I need someone to listen to me and validate me, because that's what young Rachel needs. I just need someone to listen. And so she's been amazing. She does challenge me. She asks questions. She gives me tons of homework. But I always start with filtering things through my journal and my therapist first before I bring it to the world, because the truth is I can share vulnerability, but it's really easy to almost like allow people to stay in that, the weakness, or stay in the state of the undesired result. And so I need to make sure that I'm also bringing some solutions and answers as well, as much as possible.
It's a fine line, right? And
Yeah.
it's a very delicate balance. I'm curious to know if you saw this too, because I've been sitting back and watching and learning and growing. And I feel like for a little while, the trend was only show the good stuff, only
Yes.
show the
Oh, yeah.
positive, right? And then little by little, a few people started having some courage and showing the like, hey, like, you know what? This is actually what I look like with no makeup, or this is what
Yep.
I did. And then it seemed like it went entirely the other way. At least in a lot of the things I saw, it almost seemed like there was a competition. Hot mess was the phrase of the day. And
Yes.
it was almost like there was a competition from people to prove who was the worst mom or not, you know, like the messier mom or who
I
could.
get it.
And then it was like everything I saw was, oh, you think you're a mess? Well, this is how I should. And I was like, oh my God, it's began to feel very inauthentic, almost like people were staging what a mess they were so that they could prove.
Yes.
And I was like, what is going on here? Like, did you see that too?
I did. And I actually tweeted about it like probably a year ago. I said, you don't need to manufacture imperfection if you would just stop trying to appear as though you have it all together. Just let people see things as they are. And I think the problem is that whole, like, we're all so competitive. I need to be the most put together, or I need to be the biggest hot mess. And there is that competition on both sides of the spectrum. When the truth is, I think we're all sometimes put together and sometimes hot messes. And sometimes we say things that are mortifying and we're like, I wish I could just like put all those words back in my mouth. And sometimes we're amazingly eloquent. And we're all of those things, which I kind of like.
Yeah, I call it perfectly imperfect. And I'm like, that's how I'm trying to keep it together. But I'm glad you saw that too, because I brought it up actually on a couple of groups that I was in when I saw, I'm in some widow groups, right? And so it took off in some of those groups too. And I was like, hey, let me just like put this out there. Does it feel like, we're all just trying too hard to be, and they did not like that. They did not like that coming from it was not well received. Let's put it that way. But it's interesting that you saw that too. All right. So your business, your company, why are you doing what you're doing now? Like social media managing. Like for me personally, that's like the part I like the least. That's
very common.
Yes, I'm sure. So you are an actual godsend to people who know, who can find you and who work with you and know the value that you bring, right? But what got you into it? What is it about that part that's appealing to you? Because your content itself is so creative. You're definitely a creative soul and spirit, So how does such a creative soul and spirit also really enjoy that side of it, which even my tone, I'm like getting depressed.
I know, I can see it. You're like,
I'm like, oh my God, it stresses me out so much. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm learning about myself too in every interview.
Yeah.
So how does that happen? What is so appealing about that to you?
For sure. So the first thing is, and this is really interesting, the first thing that kind of indicates that I would want to go into social media is when I was a kid, I wanted to be a performer more than anything. I wanted to be a singer, actor, dancer, triple threat, whatever, like I wanted to do stuff that got me in front of people. And then when I started drunk tweeting at reality stars and producers at night, when I started getting responses, something in me clicked. Like, here I am, literally a mom on welfare, food stamps. I've gone through a tough breakup. I'm an alcoholic. We're literally living at that point in a city called Anoka, Minnesota, which most people have not heard of. We're living next door to like a house that continually gets raided with like semi-automatic weapons with the police and SWAT teams. And down the street is the prison where they like straight up release people. So when they release prisoners, they open the doors and the prisoner goes out. And then my house is right down the street.
Wow.
Super awesome. But meanwhile, I'm tweeting people who are in a totally different possibility. And something in me kind of clicked. Like, social media has suddenly made this portal. I know that sounds super woo-woo, but I don't even mean it to sound woo-woo. It creates
it's a great word for it. Yeah.
it's like a bridge into a new possibility. And that was what sparked my interest in social media in a really big way. But then when I started realizing, oh my gosh, I can create content and reach people that otherwise wouldn't ever realize I exist, that's when I became super passionate about it. It's hardest to market ourselves. And I want to put that out there because so many times people are like, what is wrong with me? I swear, I know my business, I know my products, I know my services, I know my message. And the second it comes to marketing themselves, it is so challenging. It's always easier to market someone else. So I love marketing for other businesses because I get to try new things and test new things, and it doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel like everything falls on me. I get to see it with an outside view. When I am really challenging myself is when I'm marketing myself, because that is the hardest thing for every single person, including marketers and social media managers.
Yeah, but you go right out there. When was the first, not like the specific day, time, whatever, but like about when was the first time that you did one of the first video or the first video with the whole mom bod thing?
Oh my gosh. I don't remember when the first one was. I think the first one was a picture. I think I was way too nervous to do a video at first.
Right.
Actually, I do remember. It was in Alaska. It was 2 years ago. It was the first time that I like publicly made that decision, because up until that point, maybe it was 3 years ago, but that was the first time where I made a huge decision that I wasn't going to get a mommy makeover. And up until that point, I hadn't made that decision. And that was kind of scary for me. Like, am I really going to just put this out here and then commit to never getting a makeover? Like 100%, this is going to be something we build on. And it was in Alaska where I said, you know what? I'm never going to get that surgery. I'm just going to go for it and embrace what's there. But it was so scary for me. It was so scary. And to this day, it still is intimidating to put my body out there, because there are mean comments, there are trolls, there are fake accounts, there are 11-year-olds pretending like they're whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's always scary to put your biggest vulnerability out there, which is part of the reason I think why a lot of people hide their insecurities. And for a long time, that was an insecurity of mine. And I've really grown into it, which has been really cool.
Yeah, I saw some of the feedback that you're getting and some of the hate from it. And
yeah,
it sort of made, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to focus. It like sort of,
I like it. It's so fun.
And it's sort of, it was very discouraging and disappointing for me to see people doing that. But on the other hand, I was like, I'm so glad that Rachel is doing this, because God, it is hard. It is hard to like be that mom and have that going on and not know what to do with it or think of it. But do you think if the day came now, do you think because you've made such a commitment and you're in there, do you think if you woke up tomorrow, I don't know, you hit your head, you had a change personality, something happened and you said, you know what, I want that procedure now for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would think twice about doing it because you've drawn that line in the sand? Or do you think that you would do it and take what would happen? People, how would you handle that? Do you think?
Well, first and foremost, I had to make sure I was really all in on not getting the procedure before I started sharing it. Because can you imagine if I was like, so just kidding, I went and got all this work done on Barbie now. Like, I do not think that would go over well. And so for the longest time, actually, this is really cool. So my husband, Paul, he was like, baby, I just want to remind you of something. Do not post it until you've made a decision about what you're going to do. And so for a long time, I avoided talking about it. And he's not anti-plastic surgery. He's just very much so be yourself. He's like such a champion of that. Like, he thinks people look best first thing when they wake up, as they are, as much as possible. But he did say, he was like, if you want to get that done because that's not how you were born, feel free to change that. Do whatever you want. And I was like, awesome. But he's like, just do not post your stomach until you make a solid decision. Because, and he was really spot on with this, when you build a platform for one thing and then completely flip gears, it instantly pulls out the rug from everybody. They say, so was that all fake? Was that all just to get popularity or just to pay for this surgery or whatever?
Wouldn't that be
right?
That would be the ultimate bait and switch. Yeah.
It would be. And I've just personally made the decision to not get any plastic surgery done. And then I respect people who do. I just decided not to. And if I were to go get it done, I would expect that there would be major fallout and people would feel like I tricked them, to be honest. I would
Right.
expect that 100%.
So is that something that you foresaw when you started doing what you're doing and building the brand? Not just the brand. You haven't just built a brand, you've built a community. You've built people who
Yeah.
feel like they know you, who feel like they're close with you, even though you don't know them, right? Is that something that you think people anticipate in general when they're heading down that path? Like that's a ripple effect that you now have this, hey, like you have this ultra accountability for what you
Yeah.
say and post, and you're creating a code that you have to live by. Like you're marrying this, right? You know, you're
Yeah.
saying I do, and you're in, and you're committed. But do you think that people think that far ahead when they're just starting out?
I don't think most people do think that far ahead. The other thing too that's really interesting is we oftentimes like plan for things not working. Even though part of me knew like we're going to build something really big here, I don't think I ever realized how raving the community would be, or how passionate or protective, or they do hold me accountable. And I didn't expect that level of, I guess, connection over social media. I didn't realize how deep that would be. So I think most people don't plan based on 5 or 10 years out. I think most people post what they're feeling. And then when they change, they post what they're feeling now. And I think it's natural for audiences to say, wait a second, like I followed you for this and now you're this. And it doesn't align anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to make like a big, I want to take this person down just because they changed. But we can unfollow anyone at any point. I have a lot of people where I followed them initially and then I was like, oh, they're really different than the person that I originally followed. And that's okay. And I'm going to give them space to change and grow. But I'm just going to silently unfollow.
Right.
So yeah, I think that followers can realize we don't have to get all mad, but we can say, you don't have my vote anymore of confidence. That's okay.
Yeah, you know, it's not me, it's you, really. And so we're just going the other way. All right. So the services that you provide, let's talk about that here, because there's a lot of people who are in our community who are in the position of losing their jobs or having to make a decision that's going to, to make a choice between one thing or another, and they're going to choose to step away from their job for whatever that reason may be. A lot of it obviously is the vaccine, but there are people who are choosing to leave their job because it now goes against what they feel is best for them, but they don't know where to land. Or there's other people who are in that position who have lost their jobs because of everything that's happened, and they don't know how to start. And a lot of people can say, all right, here I am. I'm sitting home. I have all my kids around me. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. The dog is barking. I haven't slept. I've been crying because I don't know how to pay my bills. I have this.
Yes.
Like, how do I take this and be my own savior? Like how do I take this and use it?
Yep. So one thing that's important to know is we have 2 different businesses. Right. One business is our agency, which is basically like a glorified freelancing business, because I actually do the work with our clients. And we work with 8 to 10 figure business owners specifically. That is one business that we have. On the other side, people come to me crying oftentimes saying, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to leave my 9 to 5. I don't know how we're ever going to have time freedom. And that's where I teach people how to become freelancers. Now, the beautiful thing about being a freelancer is that's really all encompassing. And sometimes people say, I don't know if I have the skills to be a freelancer. Freelancer is a really general term. It could explain someone who does research. It could explain someone who does comment management on social media. So for example, if one of my posts goes viral about my body, I don't want to be the one moderating the comments. I don't want to see all of that. So I hire people to come in and support me in the comments with comment moderation and comment response. You could become someone who edits videos. You can do that at home on your own terms. There are so many things. I actually have. Do you want me to send this to you? I have 67 different things that you can do working from home. And none of these require certifications or anything. Would this be helpful?
Yeah, I will definitely post that in the article that we're going to put accompanying this. And this, again, it's another thing about you, Rachel. A lot of people think that they have to just hold on to anything. They don't want to give anything away. I'm not going to give my information away, But on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, you're out there posting things. And in one image, granted, you have to actually like pause the video and blow it up, but you're putting it there, and you're putting it there in a fun way. And you're putting out content that if somebody's really paying attention or really actually wants to take it and follow it and do what you're saying to be done, you can actually I think just off your Instagram, in that one space, you've provided all this information that really doesn't allow people to say, well, I don't know what to do. If if they're looking at your stuff, you're putting it out there, and the steps you put out, and you'll put out, like, you'll be dancing around and then there's like 10 things to do on your social media brand. I'm like, oh, wow, that's like crazy that she's putting that, because a lot of people would charge that. What is the thought process behind, and what is your thought on charging for all of that now? Or, like the people say, hey, there's three things, you could say there's 67 things you could do from home for only $9.99. You can have that and put your email in and subscribe to my thing and sign on to this, and then I'll send it to you. But you're just like, here, have it. What's your thought process behind that? Yeah.
There's a lot. So there's my personal thought process, and then we could get into like marketing psychology, because there is a level of marketing psychology at hand. Now, here's the interesting thing. Back when I used to try to get people to hire me or pay for products, my business grew. The second I said, how can I serve people? And that includes putting out free stuff nonstop everywhere. I do it Monday through Friday, every single week. Mm-hmm. That's when my business started soaring. So we went from, we're pretty close to having our first $1 million month. We've never crossed that milestone before, which is kind of weird actually to even say, but it's really exciting. Yeah. The truth is, and this blows people's minds, my husband and my salaries combined are $90,000 per year. $90,001, because I make $1 more than him per year, which is just a funny.
Never let him forget that. Yeah.
Yep. Got to just let him know. He doesn't forget because he runs the payroll, but like, we don't really need anything else, if that makes sense. So my big thought process was, I can put out optional offers, and if people want to take them, fantastic. If they don't, that's fine too. I still want to help people and provide value. One thing people don't realize though, is as you help people at scale, costs go up for everything from graphic design to serving or hosting anything. Your tools go up. Like, just for our email platform, we pay $1,000 to $2,000 per month just to be able to send out emails. Mm-hmm. So I put out optional offers, but I don't mind if someone never buys a single thing from me. I'm like, I still want to be able to make an impact on your life. So there's my personal philosophy. Literally, if we just make 6 figures per year, and that's covered with one client, we take on like 4 to 6 clients in our agency per year, but one client covers all of our bills. So we don't really need anything else. And I don't need a yacht or a jet or anything like that. But there's the other side of it too, which is psychology. There's a fantastic book called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. And in the first chapter, he talks about the power of reciprocity. Reciprocity is really, really, really strong. When someone gives you something for free, you actually want to buy from them in the future. It's so strong. One time I actually went to a restaurant and they brought out all of the dessert stuff for me, and I wasn't going to get dessert that night. And they set this little plate down and a little cappuccino cup or an espresso cup and a spoon and a fork and a new napkin. And I was like, wait, I didn't order dessert. And they're like, that's fine. The reciprocity, Barb, of that act made me order dessert because I felt like I had to, since they set all that stuff out for me and I didn't even want dessert that night. So reciprocity is a real thing. And I figure if people are going to buy programs or courses or worksheets or templates, I might as well put out stuff for free first so that they can see, hey, she's got the real deal. She's got the goods. And so if they're going to buy, they might as well buy from me, and I might as well tap into the power of reciprocity.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to touch on this area a little because we are American Snippets and we are a patriotic platform. But so I'm going to go into the American dream here for a minute, because one of the reasons that the primary reason that we started American Snippets is because, me, especially as a military widow, I felt it a little harder when I felt like people were giving up on our country and giving up on each other and giving up on their own potential in our country because of whoever was in office, right? And I felt like that's where it was going. But I knew the American dream was actually available and alive. And I knew Americans as a whole are really good, strong, kind, caring people. I think we've just forgotten how to disagree, really. I think that's what it boils down to. But, and I knew a lot of these people had come into our lives, and that's why we wanted to share their stories out. But the American dream itself, we know it's still alive and well, even though this is without a doubt a very challenging time for all of us, to build it in our own way. But we also know that it just looks different for everybody. Like the American dream isn't one thing for everybody. What's your version may look like, you love social media marketing, me, and not so much. All right. But that's your dream. That's your path. And mine is over here. But we do like to ask our guests, like, what is your own personal vision of your own dream life you would build here in America?
Yeah. So this is interesting because I'm not going to answer for my husband, but I'm also going to bring him into this story. Perfect. So my husband didn't grow up in America, or in the United States, rather. He grew up in South America. He grew up in Honduras with a tin roof, like straight up San Pedro Sula. Like life was very, very, very different. And I grew up, my parents were on welfare and food stamps in different seasons because my dad was a pastor and my mom was a worship leader. And when I look at mine and my husband's life now, that to me is proof that the American dream exists, because it doesn't make sense in most countries, in most realities, in most economies, that someone who was, we could just say, on the lower, depending on what country you're talking about, lower caste or lower class or lower economic or socioeconomic status, it doesn't make sense that that person would end up being a part of the 1%. That doesn't make sense. And I think that to me explains that the American dream is real. There is opportunity here. There is the ability to build what you want to see. And my husband also, I think, is a really great example. I know some people could say, like, yeah, but he just married you. Well, we didn't have it when we got married. We couldn't even afford a wedding.
He just married you. That's nice.
Right? All he did was just marry someone. No. But I was a hairstylist, just got off of welfare. He was a window washer. We couldn't even afford a wedding when we got married. And the truth is, this is a country with so much opportunity. The fact that even on welfare, you can still afford food and water and heat. Like that to me sets a really high bar. I've been to a ton of third world countries. Obviously, my husband grew up in one, and realizing the amount of opportunity, education, even dare I say, privilege just by being in this country is fantastic. It's there and it's available to us in a way that it isn't in countries sometimes like India or the Philippines or Honduras. There is a different level of opportunity. So we created our dream. We would stay up late at night, lay in bed, and we would say, like, what do we want life to look like? And we'd imagine, and we'd play pretend, and then we built it.
I love that. And every time you talk about your husband, you just light up, which is very cool to see. I am a firm believer in love, and I loved being married, and I'm looking forward to being married. Now again, soon all this insanity ends. So I got to have you just talk for a minute about your story, about how you met your husband. Because I messaged you. I knew, I met my fiance now online, which people laugh and joke about, but it was real. And I knew that when I met him. I knew when I walked in and actually met him in person, I felt like I was just reconnecting with somebody that I'd already known. And when I got to be married to my husband, for those years before he was killed, I felt the same way when I met him. But people kind of laugh and tell me I'm romanticizing it or whatever. So I think that's another thing that I like about you, is that you just put it right out there. That's your story. So let's hear it. Let's talk about your whirlwind 10-day romance.
So my husband and I we were set up, but not in the way that you would think. I knew all about who he was because I was told about him and told I needed to meet him by my good friend, who's now my sister-in-law. We are married to brothers, which is kind of fun. And our kids were actually friends before they were cousins, which is so cool. So I had stalked Paul online to see what he was like. And I showed up at this Bible study where I was told he was going to be. He was there. I thought naturally he knew who I was too, because I was given the heads up on who he was. And so I tried to flirt with him, and he was dressed really scrubby. And I thought, that's kind of funny. He was wearing like sweatpants and a sweatshirt, and he's super scruffy. And I was like, he didn't really dress up, but I did. So I said, could I plug in my phone by you? And he like didn't even make eye contact. He was like, no, go find your own charger. And I was like,
this must be him.
This cannot be the man of my dreams. Like, what? It turns out, so when I walked into the house, someone handed me their baby right away. And so he thought this is just another married woman at this party. And he actually thought it was inappropriate how I was talking all flirty to him, because he assumed I was married. Mm-hmm. So we ended up meeting later on throughout the night, hit it off. Literally 7 days after we met, we hung out almost every single day for those 7 days. And we go to a restaurant, and he goes, I'm in love with you. I said, I know, I feel the same way. And he said, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I was like, I know, I feel the same way. So we looked up flights to Vegas, and they were really expensive. We didn't have enough money for it. So we decided to elope at the Mall of America 13 days after we met. And we're going on 8 years next week.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. That's a fun milestone to hit. And I love that. And thank you for sharing that as well. I think it just gives hope to a lot of people. You know, just because it sounds crazy, it sounds this or sounds that, doesn't mean it's not true, right? Sometimes it has to happen for the good, I think. Sometimes we're so used to thinking, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, I can't believe how bad that is. But there's also the flip side of that. They're so crazy, I can't believe how good and awesome that is. And I think that story is just an opportunity for us to remind ourselves that the flip side of bizarre, crazy, bad things is real, right? And that's love. All right. I'm sure people know this already, and we're going to put this up in all of our articles. But for those just listening on the podcast or maybe just watching on YouTube, give us your websites and where people can find you.
Beautiful. All of my information is on my website, rachelpedersen.com, all E's and a D in my last name. So rachelpedersen.com. It also links to all of my social media platforms.
All right, great. And is there anything that I did not touch on? I feel like there was like 300,000 things I could have gone into with you. So it's hard to just, of course, stick to a course and go with it. But is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to bring in?
I don't think so. This was really good. We talked about different stuff than I normally get to talk about. So I like that. That's awesome.
We ping pong a little everywhere.
Yes.
Welcome to the inside of my brain, Rachel. You survived.
I like it here. I'm going to stay.
All right. Excellent. Rachel, really, when I said I was so excited to have you, I meant it. I really am so excited. You are someone that I've looked forward to. I knew at some point in time that our paths would cross and I would get to meet you. God bless you, Pat Hilton, for giving Rachel the nudge. Thanks, Pat. We love it. I call him Pat Earhole Hilton, by the way. And he knows that. He's like, I'm always up in your ear hole, Barb. You can hear his voice.
I love Pat so much. Oh my gosh.
Hilarious. He's hilarious. Yes. So really, thank you very much. And you have an excellent day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. All right. I'll send this out to you when we're going to drop it, and I'll put that link in and all your information, and
sounds good.
And Beautiful. Off we'll go. Really, I really appreciate you, Rachel. Thanks so much.
So nice to meet you and to connect for a little bit today. So I'll see you soon.